Okay, Fred, it looks like we're set.
Okay, we have 7 members. Okay. At this time, I would like to call the May meeting of the Niskayuna Zoning Board of Appeals to order. If we could please call the roll.
Mr. Ferrari? Mr. Ferrari?
I'm sorry, here. Hit the wrong button.
Mr. Latife?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Dolman?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Hoke?
Here.
Chairman Goodman?
Here. The first order of business tonight would be approval of the minutes from the April 2021 meeting. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask if the clerk could please call the roll.
Mr. Ferrari?
Yes.
Mr. Latife?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Abstain.
Mr. Dolman?
Abstain.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Chairman Goodman?
Yes, the motion is carried and the minutes are approved. If we could please call the first case for the evening.
The appeal of Philip and Jennifer Reed for a variance from section 220-25C1A of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskayuna as it applies to the property at 500 Ferris Road, Niskayuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to construct a 6-foot fence in the front yard. The property is a corner lot and, as defined, has front yards along Ferris Road and Consul Road. Section 220-25B1A permits the maximum height for fences located in the front and side yards to be 4 feet. As proposed, a 6-foot fence will be located in the front yard on Consul Road. Therefore, a 2-foot fence height variance is required. 11 notices were mailed out, 0 responses. I received the county referral, and the county deferred to local consideration.
I would ask if the applicant could come forward and please state your name, address, your application, the reasons for it, and what efforts were made to mitigate either the size or the necessity of a variance.
Philip and Jennifer Reed were located at 500 Ferris Road in Schenectady, New York, 12304. We made the variance request about 6 weeks ago now. We did not realize at first when working with Lowe's that the part of our yard that we were requesting the 6-foot variance or 6-foot fence to be on was not in compliance with the town. We were told that it was in compliance with the town. So once we went to file for the building permit, we got a little bit of a surprise. So with that being said, with a young child, we are hoping that we can still put in the 6-foot fence, because at 2 years old, he's already scaling a lot of things. So in a few more years, we feel like a 4-foot fence, will not be enough. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay. Did I miss anything on your end?
How close is the fence going to be to Consul Road?
So I've sent some pictures in, but I realized after thinking it through a little bit more that I didn't think the pictures, I thought I could have a different view that I think would be more helpful for you guys. Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Yes, that would be good as long as you're able to do it.
Yep. All right. So let me see here. All right. So bear with me.
Ms. Reed, while you're bringing this up, oh, that's beautiful. While you're bringing this up, when you say they told me that this 6-foot fence wouldn't be a problem, is they Lowe's?
Yeah. So Lowe's
Okay.
came out, they did the measurements, and then it was the contractor who was going to file the building permit for us. And because we were a corner lot, they didn't realize that it was going to be an issue.
Understand.
So this right here, actually with these two large trees, we're running a 4-foot fence along them. We are just requesting, and bear with me because I think my screen's a little bit frozen here. We are just requesting that the 6-foot fence go right here on the other side of our trees to connect to an already existing 6-foot fence that our neighbors put in several years ago. So behind these trees, it's not going to go really further beyond these trees. It's going to wrap right around the back of them. We're going to be putting in a 4-foot fence because we were trying to comply with the town rules. The variance request is for the 6-foot from the corner. Well,
But there's going to be drop down
You're right.
panels by the trees.
correct. So there's going to be an 8-foot transitional panel going this way, and then it's going to be 6-foot connecting to the existing 6-foot fence that's already there.
And how close is the 6-foot portion to Console Road?
So when we're looking at this other picture that I had pulled up, what was it? No.
Yeah, so
Well, yeah, you can kind of
so
see it.
probably right where that black car is.
Yeah, so it's going to be 8 feet, the transitional panel here. So the 6-foot, you know, is going to be all the way over here and then towards the back of our yard. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact footage. I know it was in the building plans that were submitted, or the, whatever they call it, that was submitted to the Niskuna Building Department when we didn't think it was going to be an issue.
I think it probably, like, just to estimate, be a little bit 20 feet, give
Yeah,
or take.
yeah, I was thinking 25, so
Yeah,
probably right in that
5 feet.
ballpark.
Is that fence going to be running perpendicular? Let me rephrase that. Is the 6-foot tall section of the fence going to be running perpendicular or parallel to to Console Road?
Perpendicular.
Okay, so you're not looking at having anything running parallel to Balltown or to Console Road at that height?
Not at that height. Nope, we're doing 4 foot because again, we, you know, when we started this process, we wanted to comply with the town of Niskuna rules.
And this would be a continuation of what the neighbor had already put in.
Correct, yep.
Any members of the board have any questions?
I'd like to ask a question. How long, and please forgive me, I'm just not fully understanding the diagram here. How long is this section that you need the variance for?
Sorry, guys, this is my first time. I'm not obviously as prepared as I should have been. I'm
Give me a
trying to
guess.
see.
I'm not asking you to run out there with a wheel to measure it.
What would you guess, like 40 feet? Or no, we did measure it. What was that? Was it 70?
It was 70 to the thing, but then you're going to have an 8 thing.
Yeah, then we back out the 8. So it was 70 to the corner of the trees, but there's an 8-foot transitional panel. So it's actually 62 feet from the existing fence to where it will start to transition down to 4 feet.
Is this the picture?
Yep. And then, so it'll be dropped down to 4 feet before we get to these trees because there will be a transitional panel.
So in the diagram that you've supplied, it's this blue line in between the transitional panel and the existing 6-foot fence?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Reed, do you have this is Keith Ferry. Do you have the diagram that you submitted with your packet in front of you?
I'm sorry. I'm going to see if I can pull it up very quickly here.
You don't have to pull it up on your screen. I just want to, for
Yep,
my own sake.
I do have it. Correct.
Okay. So you have a detached garage, which
Yep.
is up towards Console Road, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And as you look at that diagram, from the top right corner of the garage,
I came into this and I was like,
you're having a 4-foot fence run from the corner of the garage and then down parallel to Console, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And then you reach that corner, the top left corner of the rectangle that we're looking at. That's
Yep.
where the red line is your transitional panel.
Yep. And that's 8 feet.
And just for my sake, why are you putting in a transitional panel?
I guess when we talked about it, knowing that we had to have 4 foot running parallel to Console Road, they said that, you know, I mean, it just looks nicer, first of all, to drop it down to the 4 feet and not, you know, versus all of a sudden going from 6 to where we knew we had to put 4 parallel to the Console Road.
But it would
I
get
got you.
more visibility too. Like
I got you. And when you say a transitional panel, is it a gradual increase to 6 feet?
Correct. Yep. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
should have specified
No.
that.
Nope. I'm just trying to get and that's then where the 6 feet, where the red and blue lines connect, the 6-foot fence would go down toward the bottom of the rectangle and meet the dotted line, which is where the existing 6-foot fence is.
Yep. Correct.
And then you're going to install another piece of 6-foot fence on the bottom of the rectangle up to the edge of the house.
Yep. Between the detached garage and the house. Correct.
Tell me about, I mean, obviously
No,
your
because
yard right now is not totally fenced in, correct?
It's not fenced in at all. So it's definitely a concern with a 2-year-old.
Okay.
Didn't have to worry about it so much last summer, but we do now.
And that was really what I wanted to ask you was, this is for you to sort of secure your yard. Obviously, Console's a fairly
Yes.
well-traveled road. To secure your yard for your young child.
Yep. And hopefully
Okay.
future.
Now, as I see this diagram, it looks like you've drawn in neighbor's house in the back where this 6-foot panel would be.
Yep.
The neighbor that lives there, can you tell me which way does their house face? What's the front of their house?
It's towards Console.
Okay,
that's the driveway right there.
That goes to their garage in the front of their house and then out to Console.
okay. So have you spoken to this neighbor about what
Yes.
you're proposing to do?
Yep, absolutely. We wouldn't feel comfortable putting in without speaking with him. And he was, well, him and his wife were very much like, yep, whatever you want. So I asked them twice to make sure because they were so willing the first time.
And I'm sorry to ask you, you and your husband, another distance question, but I'm sure the way it's drawn here is how far is it from where the proposed fence would be to the neighbor's house? Do you have any idea?
So it is pretty close. The existing fence is pretty close to their house. So in this picture behind the trees, you can see their house, you can see their garage, the foundation, and then you can see the fence you point to the fence right there. So it's probably only about 10 feet, but that's, the distance from where the existing fence is as well.
Okay, and they know, and that obviously is your property line, correct? Or along your property line?
Yep, exactly.
And they know that 6-foot fence is going there. They're okay with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If I can see everyone again.
Yes, hello, this is Richard Green. Good evening.
Thanks.
Just so that I am comfortable with understanding the neighborhood. Your residence is kitty corner from Stewart's, correct?
Yep. Yes.
And would you agree with me that the Stewart's is an active and ongoing business?
Yep.
And a lot of cars that would come in and out of the Stewart's parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
Your neighbors, changing topics ever so slightly, your neighbors, what portion of their house faces the existing 6-foot fence and the proposed extension of the 6-foot fence to the transitional panel to the 6x4?
So it's like probably the rear of their house. It runs alongside their deck and then alongside their kitchen window, right? So probably about almost halfway through the side of their house.
So yeah, well, it just faces the side. The side of the house faces the fence.
Yeah.
Right, so they're up on a deck and they can look toward your property, correct?
Yep.
Well, yeah, the deck is in the rear of the house, but they're on the side of the deck, and they could still see on the.
Which isn't an issue.
Yeah.
We get along with them. It's more about just safety for a child.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to get the lay of the configuration in.
Yep, understand.
So these are the same people you've talked to who can see your house from their deck, and you're representing to us, the board, that they're okay with your proposal with regard to this proposed configuration of the 6-foot fence down to the transitional panel, correct?
Correct. We've talked to all of our immediate neighbors that are on all sides of the fence.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Fred, you're on mute.
Any other questions from the board?
Just a quick question. This is Mr. Lataif. Talking about the fence, I understand you said Lowe's did not tell you about certain things when you went to build it. The question I have, do you guys going to have some kind of gate to access from the side of the fence? Is it going to be which side?
It's going to be between our house and our garage.
So you're going to have a gate. Is it lockable gate? And what's the height on that gate?
Well, it depends on if you guys grant the variance or not. So, because that's the section of the yard where between our house and our garage, we're also requesting a 2-foot variance. So if we get the variance, then it will be a 6-foot gate to match the rest of the fence. If we don't get the variance, then obviously we'll have to drop it down.
Okay, so did you look into trying to put a gate to be 4 feet or something smaller, or because they do make them in some ways that it goes down kind of like for the gates. I mean, I have one myself. And did you look into other options?
Not for the gate, because I guess we just thought that
It's so recessed into our property, like it's really far deep at the end of our driveway that we didn't think that would be too big of an issue.
All right, tell me a little bit about the width of where you're going to have the 6 feet, and tell me about the width of your gate and how is this going to go all together.
Yep. So the gate is going to go between the house and the detached garage. And that's where we're also requesting a 2-foot variance to get a 6-foot fence installed there. So we're actually going to have a walk-through gate, which I believe is 4 feet. But then we're also going to have a gate to be able to get through with the lawnmower. And if we ever, at some point needed to get a piece of equipment back there, if we need to do tree work or anything, we're going to have a larger gate that I believe is 8 feet. And it's two double doors that come together. So larger pieces of equipment or the lawnmower can get back there if ever needed.
Okay,
also lawnmower weekly.
So the double door is going to be very close to the garage?
Correct. Yep, it's going to be between the house and the garage.
And that's where you store usually your lawnmower and so on? Or do you have a shed?
No, we store everything in the detached garage.
Yeah.
In the garage. So you would need access to mow your grass and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're not going to let it run wild. Don't worry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Richard Green again. With regard to the portion of your request concerning the proposed 6-foot fence that's on the interior of your property, would it be fair to say that the only people who would readily be able to see that are people who would be, for example, standing on Ferris Road and looking down your driveway toward the house on the left and the detached garage on the right?
That is correct. And in our neighborhood, you walk around and that's where you see everyone else have the 6-foot fence, because that's the primary area that everyone's spending time in their backyards. So yes, you'd have to be looking down our driveway to see the 6-foot fence between our house and detached garage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And maybe I just took it for granted. The fence, the existing fence looked like was a white, is it a vinyl fence or a?
Correct. And we're trying to maintain that. And
you're going to just have the same color, same style. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Hearing none, I would ask if there are any members of the public who wish to be heard for or against the application. Hearing none, I would ask if any members of the board wish to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the variance as written. I find that the benefit cannot be achieved by other means. That does not cause an undesirable change in the neighborhood, does not cause any adverse physical or environmental effects, while it is substantial, I think that a substantial variance that we're granting, and I think it's worth noting that we very rarely on this board grant any variances for 6-foot fences. However, the unique situation of this property, as well as the unique safety hazard caused by traffic along Console Road, balance each other out. This is self-caused, but that's not determinative. So on the whole, I move that we grant this variance.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion for the reasons stated. And I just also want to point out that I did visit the location, and safety is a big concern for a family living on that corner. But for the reasons stated by Mr. Dolman and for safety, I second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask if we could please call the roll.
Mr. Frary,
I'm going to vote yes. Let me see if I can set forth some facts on why. While it's true that this board is traditionally not a board that grants 6-foot fences in front yards, first of all, this property is unique. I share the uniqueness with you folks because I live on a corner and we happen to both have 2 front yards. We have, as a board, fairly recently granted a similar variance. I remember one we granted on Balltown Road, almost an identical situation where a family was looking to provide a buffer or an area in between their backyard and Balltown Road. And I think we can all acknowledge that Console is a fairly busy road. So while we usually don't grant 6-foot foot variances, we have actually done so in a similar situation on Balltown. I appreciate the applicant's concern about trying to conform to the height restriction in their second front yard by putting a 4-foot fence all the way down parallel to Console Road, and then building in a gradual transition. I think given where the fence is located, and the fact that the neighbors have basically agreed that they feel it's a good idea, that would probably support the idea that it's not going to change the character of the neighborhood if they are in favor of it. All 6-foot fence requests are substantial due to the difference between the 4 and the 6 foot. However, I think you have mitigated the amount of a variance needed by, again, by putting the 4-foot fence along Console Road. Plus, you have the safety concerns, which are understandable, and I think you've keeping with the style of fence, it's well thought out. So, for those reasons, I would vote yes on the motion.
Mr. Lateif,
I'm going to also say yes for all the reasons stated by Mr. Frary, Mr. Dolman. I just want to add to it is the applicant was willing to look at other options, and this was the best option for the need that they need it for.
Ms. McGinnis,
I vote yes for the reasons stated.
Mr. Dolman,
I vote yes for the reasons already stated.
Mr. Green,
I vote yes for the reasons stated. However, just a slight caveat. Well, I'm appreciative that before this board, there have been applications with somewhat similar conditions. My memory with regard to one of those applications was the neighborhood, at least in my humble estimation, was a little bit different than the one here today. Notwithstanding, I'm voting yes on this application.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairman Goodman.
I will vote yes for the reasons stated by all the other members. I will also put in that, as Mr. Frary did, that the fact that this fence is going to be 4 foot in the area that is parallel to Console Road shows that there was an effort by the applicant to conform with the zoning ordinance. And the sight lines along Balltown Road will not, or excuse me, I keep saying Balltown, Console Road, excuse me. The sight lines are along Console Road will not be impacted by a 6-foot fence running along parallel to it. And it is a continuation of the prior fence that was there. So for those reasons, I will vote yes. The variance is granted. Good luck with your project.
Thank
you
you,
very
guys.
much.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Have a great evening.
You as well. If we could please call the next case.
The appeal of Andrew Nguyen for a variance from section 220-18B2 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 5 Brendan Lane, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to construct a shed which exceeds the number of allowable accessory structures on the property. Section 220-18B2 states that there shall not be more than 3 accessory structures on a lot. As proposed, there will be 4 accessory structures on the property, 1 existing pool, 1 existing gazebo, 1 existing fence, and the new shed. Therefore, a variance for 1 accessory structure is required. 10 notices were mailed, 0 responses.
I would ask if the applicant could please come forward, set forth your application, the reasons for it, and what efforts were made to mitigate the need of a variance.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm Andrew Nguyen. This is my wife, Kristen. We moved into our property, 5 Brendan Lane, a little less than 2 years ago. When we moved in, there was already an existing pool and a fence, which of course is required as safety for the pool, and a gazebo as well. We have enjoyed all 3 of these structures. Obviously, the pool was a big reason for buying the house, and the gazebo provides a lot of shade for when we're sitting and watching the kids swimming in the pool. We would really like to have a shed because it'll give us, 1, a place to store all of the supplies that come with the pool, in addition to having a place for all the yard toys that our kids have to put away currently. For the big toys that don't really have a space, they're just sitting out in the yard. It would look a lot nicer if we had a place that the kids could put them when they're done. And also, we would like to have a place to put our snow blower, our mower, and other yard supplies, because currently these sit in the garage and they take up one of the bays, preventing us from being able to park a car in the garage. And as far as I can tell, there's no way to mitigate the variance for what we want, short of either removing the gazebo or removing the pool, neither of which we would like to do.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board?
Couple quick questions. And this is for the record. We do have it, you know, the information I'm going to ask you. So this way we're just going to put it for the record. Could you tell us a little bit about the shed that you're building?
Yeah, so this is basically like a kit shed that we're getting from Amazon. It's 8 feet by 15 feet. And it is we found one that was very much in the same design as a lot of the sheds that are in our neighborhood.
It's going to be back corner.
Yeah, and in terms of the location that we're going to have it, we're on a corner lot. So this is going to be in the rear corner opposite the 2 roads. It's going to be against some arborvitae trees on the one line from a neighbor there, invisible to them. And then, 5 feet from the fence for the other neighbor, whom we've talked to and asked if they were all right with it. And they said they were absolutely fine with it. And that apparently one of the previous owners actually had a shed that the next owner had taken down for some reason.
Okay. And just in addition, how high was it? Did you say?
8 feet high, I think.
8 feet high? Okay. And what are you going to be storing in that shed?
So we would like to store the mower and our snow blower for sure. We have basically a big bin of the pool chemicals and the skimmer and the brush for the pool and our robotic vacuum. All these supplies that we have to constantly bring back and forth in the garage whenever we're trying to upkeep the pool. And then apart from that, we have various toys that the kids use water tables, one of those big red Fisher-Price cars that you push around, a wagon with a bunch of, big trucks for digging up in the yard, things like that.
Okay. And last question from me is, where you placing the shed is in the corner, right?
That's correct, yes.
And what's in there right now? Just grass? What are you gonna do? You're gonna put something different to put the shed on it?
Well, yeah, we're going to install a wooden platform on cinder blocks to be the base for the shed. And currently back there, it's a bunch of dirt because before, I think the previous owners had a trampoline, and I think the shade from that killed all the grass underneath it. So it's just a patch of dirt at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, Laura, where they're positioned, we're okay with the setbacks?
Yeah, as written, let's see. Oops, sorry, hold on.
Because it looks like they're 5 feet from the.
5 feet and 5 feet.
They're 5 feet from both the rear yard. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it says neighbor's fence. I assume that's a property line. Looks like 5 feet from both the side and rear yard setbacks. This is a shed it's bigger than.
Is it bigger than 120? That was just going to be, I can't do the math in my head.
You would be asking me to do math. You'd be asking me to do math, which is impossible.
Yeah, I just did that because I started panicking, but it's 120 square feet exactly. So the 5 feet is okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because it is fairly close to the rear and side yards. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Other questions from the board?
If I may, Richard Green, good evening. I just want to make sure I got it right in my mind. If the application's granted and you get the shed, then you have stuff that's in the garage that gets to be in the shed. And then the car that's in the driveway, when you want, could be parked inside. Perhaps
that's correct.
More often than not in the winter months, correct?
Yes.
Do I have the game plan correct?
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Other questions from the board? Hearing none, I would ask if there's any members of the public who wish to be heard for or against the application.
Hi, this is Jessica Smith. We live at 9 Brendan Lane, and we do not have any objections to this.
Thank you for your taking the time this evening.
Of course.
Ms. Smith, could you give us an idea where you are in terms of, are you to the right, to the left? If you're facing the wind's home, where are you?
We are to the left. We're 2 houses down, so we can see their backyard from our house.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else in the public wish to be heard? Hearing none, I would ask if any members of the board wish to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve this variance for accessory structure, just to make sure, because there's already 3, so we're approving 4 accessory structure. This cannot be achieved by other means because the applicant already have 3 structure in place before they moved in. It's not going to change anything to the character of the neighborhood nor nearby properties. It's a shed. It's going to be in the corner. The neighbor are okay with it. Also, there's no setback required in this case. The only thing they ask him for is another structure. We have done this on this board. We added people with 5 structures. Was this self-created? It is self-created, but again, they didn't have any options in here because the 3 structure already existed there, and they need a shed to store all their belonging, lawnmower and snow blower and some equipment for the kids and so on. So for all these reasons, I make a motion to approve it.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
This is Keith Frary. I'll second the motion for the reasons stated.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask if we could please call the roll.
Mr. Frary,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Latife,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Dolman,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairman Goodman.
I will vote yes for the reasons stated and put on the record that when you do have a pool, which is counted as a structure and it's an in-ground, you are required to have a fence. So many cases do require a variance when people have pools. Your variance is granted. Thank you for taking the time this evening to come out. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
If we could call the next case, please.
The appeal of Ryan and Rachel Wade for a variance from section 220-18B3B and section 220-13 Schedule IB of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 1354 Rose Hill Boulevard, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to construct a shed which is located partially within the side and rear yard setbacks. Section 220-18B3B states that the required side and rear yard dimensions for major accessory structures shall be the same as applies to the principal building. As defined, the major accessory structures are detached accessory buildings or other structures in excess of 120 square feet. The shed at 192 square feet is a major accessory structure. Section 220-13 Schedule IB establishes a side setback minimum of 20 feet and a rear setback minimum of 25 feet. As proposed, the shed would be located 10 feet from the side property line and 12 feet from the rear property line. Therefore, both a 10-foot side yard setback variance and a 13-foot rear yard setback variance are required. 10 notices were mailed out, 1 response was received, and Laura will read that.
Regarding the variance request, section 220-18B and section 220-13 Schedule IB for Ryan and Rachel Wade at 1354 Rose Hill Boulevard. I have had a chance to review the plans and location of the proposed shed. I believe the plans will be a positive addition to their property and the neighborhood. I don't believe the proposed shed will have a negative impact on the adjoining properties. I fully support their request for the variances. If you require further input, feel free to contact me. James Gleason, 1349 Rose Hill Boulevard.
I would ask if the applicant could please come forward and state your name and address, the reason for your variance application, and what efforts you made to mitigate the need for a variance.
Hey everybody, this is Ryan and Rachel Wade, 1354 Rose Hill Boulevard. My wife and I have been in Niskuna about 12 years, I think now 12 years, 13 years. We lived over on Ruffner Court, had a couple kids, and we lived on the court, so we didn't have a backyard. So we bought this house at 1354 Rose Hill because it was going to have a pretty flat backyard, and we were going to be able to create a backyard for the kids. And we moved in a couple years back, and we're in the process of getting the backyard put together. And over the last year or two, we've been parking our cars in the driveway because I have a riding lawnmower, a snow blower, lawn furniture, kids' toys, all the normal stuff, and a lot of big stuff that's going in the driveway or in the garage. Our last house that we lived in had an oversized garage where we fit a couple cars, our mower, garbage cans, all those things were able to fit in the garage. When we moved here, we realized that the garage was substantially smaller. Our 2 cars alone, if they were in there by themselves, barely fit, let alone all these other items. So we're trying to get together a shed in the backyard to store the mower, the lawn furniture, all the lawn equipment we have, the kids' bikes and toys and things like that, so we can finally park in the garage.
I read in your application that the setbacks would comply with a smaller shed. The legislative intent was obviously when you have a larger structure to have a bigger setback. I didn't see anywhere in your application why you would not be able to conform with the setback requirements for the size shed you want as opposed to the setback for the smaller shed.
Yeah, so I work with a guy who lives over on Onondaga, and he has a 10 by 12 shed, and I have a zero turn riding lawnmower. It's about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide alone, just that alone. If we factor in the snow blower, the weed whacker, all the lawn furniture, it'd be hard to even get these items out of there. So I'm trying to get a shed slightly bigger than that. Instead of 12 by 10, I'm trying to do 16 by 10. So I can fit these items in easily and also park our cars in the garage finally.
So why would you not be able to comply with the setback requirements for the larger shed? That's what your application
Oh,
did
sorry.
address.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah. So our backyard is it's very wide, but it's not very deep. So in order to comply with the setback requirements of 25 feet from the rear property line, we had to put the shed basically in the middle of the backyard. And we wouldn't be able to have a backyard, which was kind of the whole reason why we moved here. So we're trying to put the shed in like the back corner. So it's really for a couple reasons. One, it's not, we can have a backyard, but also two, that's the area of our yard where it'd be least seen by our neighbors. I actually went around, and you all should have a letter. I went around to every neighbor that adjoins to our house, and I went over the plans of the shed with them, and I had them sign a letter. That I reviewed that with them. They all approved it, and they all thought that it was going to be a good addition. That letter you just read was a different neighbor that I have that I didn't even know he was going to send that in, but I viewed the plans with him also.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'm curious. This is Richard Green. The unsolicited letter, where does that person live in relationship to your house as you're facing the front of your house?
He lives directly across the street to the left of me.
Okay.
I was out walking my dog, and he had gotten a letter from the town, and he said, "Hey, I got the letter." And I said, "I've reviewed this with all my neighbors in my back, adjoining the back of my house. If you'd like to take a look at it, I'd be more than happy to show you." And he said, "Sure." And I reviewed it with him, and he didn't even tell me he was going to send that in. He just did it, which was kind of neat.
We'll call that a bonus letter.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Mr. Wade, this is Keith Ferrari. Question for you. I recognize that you had put the shed or the proposed shed in the rear corner. Did you look at all about trying to lessen the variance? I know you said if you totally remove the need for a variance, it's in the middle of the backyard, but have you done any like jockeying of the shed, turning it, moving it a little further one direction or another? Because right now you need both a backyard and a rear yard and side yard setback. What did you do to take a look at that?
Yeah, so what I did was the yard itself is like 100 feet wide in the back and 50 feet deep. So I jockeyed with maybe turning it slightly so one of the sides of the variance request wouldn't be needed. But what I found was my neighbors' yards were going to be, the sight line was going to be inhibited. Like if they came out in their backyard and they looked towards my backyard, the shed was going to block their view going that way if I put it any other angle, versus if I put it in the back corner, but where the back of it's just the trees, and I angle it in such a way where that's kind of the place it fits where it doesn't inhibit anybody's view of their yard.
Do you have neighbors back in the back?
Yes. Yep.
And I assume that that's their backyard as well, like your backyard, their backyard abut each other?
Yeah, they do. There's actually a 10 to 15 foot buffer of trees and like wilderness back there that I'm not touching. I'm leaving that. But I actually went back to the rear neighbors on Glen Meadow, which is the street behind me. I went and reviewed the plans with them, and they're part of the people that have signed this letter that I've reviewed the plans with them.
Is the buffer on your property, their property, shared? What?
It's shared. It's probably about 5-6 feet on my property, and then maybe 7-8 feet on their property. And it's
So the
trees.
property line actually runs through that buffer area.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a couple questions. Let's talk about the neighbors. Anybody in the neighborhood, they have sheds like you're building? Is it something that other people have it?
There's my neighbor right next to me has a shed.
Okay.
He actually has a push mower though, so
Okay.
he doesn't have quite as big of a shed. He also doesn't have any lawn furniture or anything like that outside, so I think he just stores his mower in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your backyard,
Yep.
what else does it have in the back beside the shed that you're going to be building?
We're having Pearl Landscaping coming over. They're going to be installing a like a sod and some landscaping, trees, installing some trees on our property for some privacy. Actually, some of these trees are going to be on each side of the shed in the corner, so that it's even more inhibiting the view of the shed.
Okay.
Which is going to be a good thing. But ultimately, I actually didn't buy just a off-the-shelf shed that you get somewhere. There's a company down in Connecticut called Country Carpenters, and they actually build like a custom sheds made of it's like a white pine, like a white pine that doesn't rot. They dry it out, and I provided a picture of it for you guys to take a look at. It's not like a aluminum windows. It's like a wood window shed with like a real roof, and like it's gonna look very, very nice.
Okay. And the only reason I asked what else you have in the back, so this is the only structure basically you have?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So in the future, if you want to add something to your backyard, by placing the shed in the corner where you placed it, you will have more room to do other things.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Both my kids play lacrosse, so the purpose of buying this house was to get a backyard so they could get grass and run around on it.
Well, that's another reason why you need the space where you can have a little backyard.
Now they can throw the ball against the side of the garage, right? Just out of curiosity, I noted in one of the diagrams, and I don't know if it's just a standard diagram that comes with it, there's a loft inside the shed.
Yes. Yep.
Is that going to also be used for storage?
That's going to be used for the lawn furniture that we're going to have on our patio.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Just want to make sure there's no intentions of, like a little bungalow up there or something like that.
No.
Okay.
Unless my wife kicks me out, I can't promise anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Would anyone in the public be heard for or against the application? Hearing none, I would ask if we could please call, or try. I would ask if any members wish to make a motion.
You're on mute, Keith. You're on mute.
Thank you, Nick. Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we grant the variance. This is Keith Frary. I appreciate the fact that the applicant has actually given some consideration to trying and lessen both the side and rear yard setbacks. Obviously, I think it's a very valid point. This is the only structure that's back there. The applicant has also given some consideration to sight lines and views from the neighboring yards, what they're going to see, what they're not going to see. I don't think it's going to change the character of the neighborhood because you have a natural buffer along the back property line, which is going to shield the shed from probably the closest or some of the closest neighbors back there. The applicant has also spoken to his neighbors and they universally have approved the project as written with no objections or concerns. While the setbacks, and was the purpose of one of my questions, are fairly substantial, it does not appear, at least in terms of the practicality of where to put the shed, that there's an alternative short of putting it, as the applicant said, in the middle of the backyard, which is not a feasible option and would make it more visible to the neighbors and probably more objectionable. So for those reasons, I move that we grant the variance, both variances to rear and side yard setbacks.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask if we could please call the roll.
Mr. Frary,
Yes.
Mr. Lateef,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes, for the reasons stated, and I also would like to compliment you on the design. It looks beautiful, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more of these pop up.
Thank you.
Mr. Dolman,
Yes, for the reasons already stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes, and I'd also like to dovetail on the comments of Ms. McGinnis. This is not just a shed. This is a very nice looking shed, which will fit very nicely into the yard and the overall neighborhood. It's appropriate for the neighborhood. So I wish you luck. I vote yes on this for the reasons stated.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairman Goodman.
I will vote yes for the reasons stated, and as I have stated in other cases, the applicant here did explain why they needed the extra variance or the variance and couldn't move the shed. And they had related to the setbacks for smaller sheds. They could have gotten away with putting 2 sheds in because they didn't have any accessory structures that would be within the setbacks as done. However, in those cases, although technically in compliance with the ordinance, it would be a less valuable addition to the property to have 2 small sheds there than one tastefully done one. So I would like to compliment them on their efforts to work within the system as well as add to the community. The variance is granted. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
If we could please call the next case.
The appeal of Laura Robertson for a variance from section 220-18A2 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 67 East Street, Niskuna, New York, located in the RR Rural Residential Zoning District, to construct an above-ground pool, which will be located in the front yard. The property is a corner lot and as defined by section 220-4 and has frontages on William Street, Middle Street, and East Street. Section 220-18A2 states, except otherwise specified in the chapter, accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. As proposed, the pool is located in the front yard along William Street and Middle Street. Therefore, the locations of the pool in these front yards requires a variance. 13 notices were mailed out, 1 response. The response is from Richard Flanders at 52 East Street. I am writing in favor of granting the variance for Laura Robertson, 67 East Street, Niskuna. I live at 52 East Street and have similar conditions where I have 3 front yards due to being surrounded by 2 paper streets plus East Street. Anything I want to do on my property requires a variance because of this. I have worked with the town over the past 35 years with this issue and have received variances upon appeal each time. The terminology can confuse many people when they hear front yard, as it is a technical term and does not necessarily refer to something being put between the front of the house and the primary street where the house is located. The location where Laura wants to put her pool, above ground pool, is physically in a side and rear yard, a logical place for a structure and close enough that she can see anything going on and around the pool from the front side porch. The variance fits in the neighborhood and will not be a distraction. I believe that the variance should be granted.
Thank you. If Ms. Robertson could please come forward and state your name and address, and also have the necessary ethics filings been made with regard to your position with the town.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I think there was a letter in the application
Okay,
that she's having somebody represent her.
okay.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, I'm Laura's sister, Amanda Armail. I'd like to represent her on this issue.
All right. And council, do we have the necessary documents for the town employee?
We do. It was included in the packet.
Okay, thank you. I missed it. If you could just go forward with your name and address and the application, any efforts that were made to mitigate the need for a variance or eliminate the need for a variance.
Okay, my name is Amanda Armail. I'm on 9 Caroline Street in Latham. I'm Laura Robertson's sister, and I've seen her property at 67 East Street many times. She's looking for a variance for her pool, and she's surrounded by 3 streets, so they're all front yards from East, Middle Street, and Williams Street. And I think Linda has a really nice picture diagram if you guys need to see it. But on East Street is where her mailbox is, where her driveway is, and her front door faces East Street. And the pool is actually would be considered almost looking like it's the backyard from there. But Middle Street is also considered a front yard, and there's 200 feet of forest and wetland between the Middle Street and, you know, where the pool would be. And there's more than 100 feet of forest and wetland between William Street and where the proposed pool would be. And you can kind of see her garage in this diagram as well. And the parts that are the rear yard and the side yard, you can see the huge amount that's part of her septic that takes it up. And it's also extremely wet in that area, which would make it very difficult to put a pool in the area that you'd normally put it, in the rear yard and the side yard. And for safety concerns, she really wants to be able to see her daughter and so forth in swimming. So she doesn't really want to put it directly behind the house, because then the only windows are the bedroom windows. So she wouldn't really have a line of sight, and for safety concerns, and for the fact that that's actually a little closer to the neighbors, and they'd have more sight line there than if she had it where her proposed spot was. It's a substantial variance, I guess. It is a front yard. This is my first time, so bear with me. I don't really know the wording as well, but you know, she is factoring in all these considerations that it really doesn't look like a front yard for most of these things, and it's very surrounded by trees and everything else, so there's not much of a sight line for any of the neighbors. The pool is an above ground, and it has a removable ladder, so there's the safety there. She can always lock it up in the garage when she's not using it. And both Laura and her daughter really love swimming. So they've had a little wading pool that with 2 feet of water there. Never had any problems with the neighbors or anything on that. And her daughter's getting older now and really loves to swim. And so does my sister. And they would really love to be able to have an actual pool in their yard. So I hope that hit most of the spots, but feel free to give me questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question, just very briefly. Ms. Armail, are you able to see the pool as proposed from East Street?
No, she has quite a bit of shrubs that cover in the front yard, and you can almost see that the dark in the picture that they showed in the, but yeah, you can't see it from East Street at all. You can't see her house that easily from there.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question, Maureen McGinnis. So I did drive out and took a look, and you really can't see anything. But I'm just curious, what size is the pool?
Well, she's asking for a variance for 18 feet around, but she found a pool that she really likes for 16 feet. So she's fine with, adjusting it to that if, that would help with the granting.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, since you mentioned the 16 feet and 18 feet, there is no problem with the side setback. The only problem is placing the pool what is called the front of the house. True?
Right. Even though it doesn't look like a front of a house, it is technically, I guess, considered a front yard, which, when you look at the house, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that is how it is set in your code. So.
I also, like Miss McGinnis, I did drive by the house. I was trying to figure out what's the front of that house. So I did think, I did back up, and took me a few times to figure it out, but I did figure out that it's a very unique property. But just tell me a little bit about, I know there's Middle Street, there's East Street, and there's William Street. Now, the William Street is considered the back of that property?
Yeah, the William Street, I mean, it would have to be all the way back there. Yeah, if you're taking the houses on William Street and then.
And tell me, and if you don't know, I have it in front of me, but just to put it on record, the back of the house, it doesn't have enough room in there from what I'm seeing in the picture. And there's also houses on William Street, correct?
Right, there's houses on William Street, and it would definitely add a little more sight line. You might be able to fit it, but it's very shady. The gutter's going out that way. And like I said, for safety concerns, she really wants to be able to have a line of sight with her daughter.
Right.
So by moving it a little bit further toward the deck, she'd be able to get that.
Okay, and just a couple more questions from me, if you don't mind. And again, we have all this information. I just want to make sure I put it on the record. That's all.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about what is considered on the other side of the house. Where is that? Where the septic tank is?
Yeah, the green area way over right behind all those houses that you see on William Street.
Right.
That big box is the septic area, and that takes up most of the rear yard, as you can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it's
also
also sloping and really wet.
right, it's wet and it's not even to fit the pool in there.
Right.
Okay. And last question. It looks like when I was looking at the property, I took some pictures just because it's very hard to see through. I did not drive into the driveway. It looks like, which I think it was mentioned in the document, there's a deck in front of the house.
Yeah, she's got a side deck.
Right.
It's not actually the front door. The front door is a little further over. But the side deck is where she has the sliding doors and where she could see from.
Okay, and that pool will be going very close to where that deck is, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Anyone in the public who wishes to be heard for or against the application? Hearing none, I would ask if any board members wish to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve this variance. I did take a drive, looked at the property. This is a very hard to achieve this with this property, what Ms. Robertson is trying to do. It's a very small backyard. If we were to consider East Street is the front and to the side of the house, by placing the pool in the back, this means going to be a lot of work. And what we didn't talk about, there's a lot of trees in there. There's shades. So it's not going to be convenient for the applicant to achieve what she's trying to do. It makes more sense to have the pool close to the deck and close to the windows in the house, so the pool is monitored from the deck or the windows. Granting this variance will not create a detriment to nearby properties or an undesirable change to the neighborhood. Actually, we're placing that pool on that side, you can barely see it from the road. So this is just to mention, this is an unusual front yard. It's got 3 properties, got 200 yards far away from Middle Street. So it's all, you can't see from that street at all. The variance is substantial, I have to say. But again, this does not look like a front yard. The uniqueness of this property, what makes it very difficult to really decide where's the front, where's the side, where's the back. So again, like I said, I drove by it, I studied it, I went through all this processes. I also checked in with the town. We have approved in similar properties. We have approved pools in considering in front when you have a unique property like this. This will not have a diverse physical or environment effect on the neighborhood or nearby property. The pool is very small, very limited visibility to the road and the properties. The drainage is taken care of because the applicant did mention that all the drainage will be able to go to her properties and not to the neighbors. If this is self-created, yes, it is self-created. The issue of this property forces the applicant to do it this way. The place where the pool going is the best flat spot to place the pool. So for all these reasons, I make a motion to approve this variance.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it for the reasons stated, and also want to note that it is an extremely unique piece of property, a very unique neighborhood, and very hard to see the yard, the house, or anything from the road. So for the reasons stated and for that reason, I second.
Is there a discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask if we could please call the roll.
Mr. Frary,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Latife,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Dolman,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes, I'd just like to emphasize that indeed this is a unique parcel with unique features on the parcel. You can't place a pool on top of a septic tank area or in an area that is very wet, nor would you want to place it in a forested area. It appears to me that given the inherent restrictions of the property, that the proposed place really is the best and optimal spot for the pool. And it doesn't affect the neighbors, and no neighbors have come forward to object. So for all the reasons stated, I'm going to vote yes for this.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Chairman Goodman.
I will vote yes for the reasons stated. I won't restate them all other than to say that we have dealt with this property before and it is very unique, and the neighborhood itself is unique within the town, and that there would be no other alternative. So I will vote yes. The variance is granted. Thank you for your time this evening.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have other business to come before the board?
Chairman, I just wanted to announce, I'll send out an email, but I think we worked out that 5:30 on Friday for cupcakes in the gazebo, just to celebrate.
Okay.
We would like, and I'll send out an email for everybody too, but it was just a shame we couldn't have this meeting in person. And we did want to say goodbye, you know, to see you.
Any music, Laura?
I could look, I could probably make music.
I just want to say that it's been an honor to be able to serve in this capacity for a number of years, to give back to my community and to work with all of you. As all change, you're a little melancholy, but we are looking forward to a future and spending time together, and without our snowblower. Although people have said to me, how will you be able to stand the weather in the summer? It's so hot. And I pointed out that on many summer days, it is hotter here in Niskayuna and Schenectady than it is in South Florida. And today happens to be one of those days. We're going to be 9 miles from the ocean, and we're on to new adventures. I've been in my home for 30 years. It's hard to believe so many years have passed, but I've thoroughly enjoyed my time, worked with many good people, and enjoyed working with everyone here on the zoning board. So thank you.
Thanks for your service, Freddie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
Chairman Goodman, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I'm humbled. There's no other business. I would ask if anyone wishes to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night. Thank you for your time, and I'm signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Best wishes.
Thank you.